All right, Sarah, does it look okay?
Looks great.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. I'm Stephanie Litvak, Manager of VSA Programs in the Office of Accessibility and VSA at the Kennedy Center. This webinar will cover, during this webinar, I will talk about how to prepare a VSA program contract proposal, and I will answer questions related to the proposal form. Program-specific content. In addition to questions about the program form, you're welcome to ask me program-specific content questions. I'm also happy to answer your questions if you call me at 202-416-8847 or email me at sslitvak@kennedy-center.org. Q&A at the end. Please feel free to type your questions into the Q&A box at any time during my presentation. I'll be happy to answer your questions during the designated time at the end of my presentation. The RFPs. As you know, the Kennedy Center recently released 7 different requests for contract proposals, or RFPs, to become a VSA program site for the 2024-2025 fiscal year. These are Arts Connect All Workshop Residency Program, Media Arts Discovery Program, Theater Discovery Program, Visual Arts Discovery Program, VSA Museum Access for Kids Program, VSA Performing Arts Access for Kids Program, and lastly, VSA EZ Program. How many proposals? A non-commercial entity, such as a nonprofit organization, a school, a city government, may submit proposals to a maximum of 2 different RFPs for which it is eligible. An organization may only submit 1 proposal per RFP. Please note that individuals are not eligible to apply for a VSA program contract. The Kennedy Center will issue a contract offer for no more than 1 proposal per selected eligible organization. Not offered this year. For those of you that have submitted proposals previously or have worked with us previously, you'll notice that the list of RFPs is a little bit different. We're not offering in 2024-2025 the VSA Arts Connect All Professional Development Program and the VSA Rosemary Kennedy Initiative. There are no successors to these programs, and I do not know if they will return in the future. Newish programs. There are 3 programs that were new in 2022-2023 and are worth noting again. We think you'll like these programs because they're more comprehensive of the arts discipline and broaden the types of arts learning that can take place. So the first is the VSA Media Arts Discovery Program. Media arts includes moving images, digital images, photography, sound, interactive arts, and virtual arts. The second is the VSA Theater Arts Discovery Program. This program encompasses both theater craft and drama process. And you can do script writing in this program. The third is the VSA Visual Arts Discovery Program. You're welcome to use activities from the VSA Visual Arts Teacher Resource Guides for this program, but there's no requirement to do so. So if you're interested in using the VSA Teacher Guides, you can find them online at kennedy-center.org/education/VSA. Then click on VSA Research and Resources and look under Lesson Plans. No minimums. If you have a small number of participants or have a short event, then the VSA Easy program might be perfect for you. There's no required number of participants, and there's no required number of hours of instruction to meet. This contract is for up to $5,000 for an event, a workshop, or a series of sessions. RFPs for venues only. 2 of the VSA programs are for venues only. For the VSA Museum Access for Kids program, you must be a nonprofit museum. And for the VSA Performing Arts Access for Kids program, you must be a nonprofit brick and mortar performing arts venue. Resident companies are not eligible for this program. Professional venue and show. Please keep in mind that for the VSA Performing Arts Access for Kids program, you must be a professional venue. The shows must take place at your venue, and the shows must be professional. It is not appropriate for the performance to take place at a school or to have students performing for students for this program. Conferences in August 2025. On page 3, number 7 of the RFP, you'll find a professional learning requirement to participate in either the LEAD or the EdIT-Lead conferences. The required conference for 24-25 contracts will take place in early August of 2025 in Ohio. Although the RFP specified that the conferences would be in Toledo, that has since changed, and we're searching for a space in another city, but in Ohio. Read the RFPs carefully. I urge you to read carefully every section of the RFP you're interested in. All of the RFPs have been updated slightly from last year, so please read the entire RFP, even the super boring legal parts. Read the RFPs carefully, especially the core program components on page 2, the logo and professional learning requirements on page 3, and the eligibility requirements on page 4, and the ever popular, the unallowable costs list on page 6. They're similar, but are not the same in every RFP. Special education credentials. There is a special education credentials eligibility requirement for all VSA programs. What this means is that all organizations must have a staff person, a consultant, or an advisor with special education credentials substantively involved in the development and/or the delivery of the VSA program. This person should assist you in ensuring that your content and program delivery are appropriate for students with disabilities. Make sure that you list the credentials, such as but not limited to educational degrees or school district special education certificates. and list them with the person's biography in your proposal, in that section of the proposal. Contracts, not grants. These RFPs are for contracts, not grants. I can't stress this enough. And your wording in the proposal should reflect this. The Kennedy Center is seeking contractors to deliver VSA programs to become VSA program sites. We want our VSA programs to impact as many of our constituents as possible. Our constituents are students with disabilities, pre-kindergarten through grade 12. We're looking for good contractors to help us to do this by using their expertise to achieve our program goals around the country. Contracts, not grants. This is a contract for hire process rather than the grant process that many nonprofit organizations are used to. It's a competitive process. We're looking to hire organizations that have the best qualifications and are cost effective. It is similar to the process you may use to hire teaching artists or curriculum developers. Please keep in mind that these are contracts to do work for the Kennedy Center. These are not grants to organizations to support the organization's programs. This is a subtle but very important difference and should shape the framing of your proposal. You are the expert. You need to think of the contract as bringing your expertise to deliver the Kennedy Center's VSA programs described in the RFP to our constituency of students with disabilities in your community. Just as you would receive a price estimate from a teaching artist before you hire them, the proposal you submit is your estimate to the Kennedy Center of why you should become a VSA program site and what you will do as a VSA program site. Tell us about your experience, describe the services you can provide to the Kennedy Center, and explain how these will meet the VSA program goals. Explain how you will deliver the VSA program and estimate how much it will cost you to do this work for the Kennedy Center. I also suggest that if you have colleagues who are going to help you write the proposal that are not on this call, that you need to relay this particular information to them about the difference between this being for a contract offer versus a grant that they're more used to, because we need to make sure that you're using your language in the proposal that is geared towards being a contract and not geared towards being a grant. Existing program structures. Use your existing program structures in the proposal, the work that you're doing. Existing program structures. In your work as a VSA program site, you may use existing program structures or frameworks that have proven to be successful. You may also choose to combine the contract fee with existing funding sources to better achieve VSA programs goals and expand your services to the Kennedy Center and your stakeholders. For example, if the fictional organization Kids Awesome Arts applies to be a VSA program site, they might say in their proposal, Kids Awesome Arts will provide VSA Arts Connect All Workshop Residency Program services to the Kennedy Center through the framework of our Kids Create program. Do not use grant-like language similar to the contract will support or this contract will fund. That language is too close to grant language about supporting your organization instead of what services you will provide to the Kennedy Center to deliver its program. Sufficient information. In your proposal, you will want to provide us with sufficient information to evaluate your proposal in both the narrative and the contract fee justification. We use all of the information you give us to evaluate the effectiveness of the proposed work in meeting the VSA program goals. We ask that you be particular about the drafting of your proposal. Your text and presentation should be concise, clear, and error-free. Focus on telling us about the VSA program goals and objectives you will achieve in your community. Wise narrative use. Use the narrative spaces in the proposal form wisely. Make your proposal as strong as possible by focusing your efforts on the narrative sections where you describe your services. Have a strong summary description. Tell us how you will deliver the VSA program, goals and objectives, strategies, and learning objectives. Since this is a contract proposal, instead of a grant application, you don't have to waste space on justifying the need for the program. We know there's a need for the VSA programs. Carefully review your proposal for errors before submitting, and also look out for where you may have repeated text. I've had in the past few years a number of applicants put almost identical information in more than one section of the proposal. And that's just a loss of space where they could be doing more explanation of what they're proposing to deliver. Don't assume that we have prior knowledge of your organization or its work. Even if we worked with you before, take the time to describe your structures, frameworks, strategies, and methodologies where asked. This is not the time to rely on us being familiar with an existing program name. For example, don't simply say something like, "We will use the Kids Awesome Arts Movement method developed over the past 10 years. Go on to explain what the method actually includes. Tell us what the program participants will learn and how they will be taught. Describe the activities participants will undertake." This is important. Remember to describe very specifically how you will serve students with disabilities. Describe how your services specifically address the learning needs of students with disabilities, especially if you're working in an inclusive environment. Make it clear that you have thoughtfully developed these strategies, frameworks, and/or methodologies with students with disabilities in mind. Tell us what accommodations and adaptations you will be prepared to provide. Tell us if you're addressing IEP goals. We want to make sure that the residencies that you're talking about or what you're proposing are specifically for serving students with disabilities and not just any old residency that's out there. We want to make sure that you are first and foremost thinking about how you're serving students with disabilities. Transparent fee justification. Transparency is key in the contract fee justification or budget. Create a budget that provides us with sufficient transparency into the calculation of the contract fee. Follow the line items given and provide adequate calculations and narrative for us to understand how the proposed contract fee ties to the services you will provide to accomplish VSA program goals and serve students with disabilities. Budget format. We have a preferred budget format with specified expense categories built into the proposal form. The form allows for flexibility in the level of detail. We expect to see calculations for each line item and narrative when an explanation is needed. The line items in the VSA contract amount column should add up to the proposed contract fee. This is the same amount that you will put in question 5 of the proposal form. The amount should not exceed the maximum contract amount stated in the RFP. Show calculations. It's important for us to see your calculations. Tell us how you arrived at a particular line item amount. Never simply indicate a percentage of an expense without explanation. Tell us how you arrived at assigning that particular percentage. Was it based on the number of hours? Was it based on the number of students with disabilities being served? Are you contributing financial resources to the VSA program? Budgets should clearly show that the contract fee is enabling the participation of students with disabilities, especially if you're working in an inclusive setting. We want to make sure that the contract fee pays you to serve the students with disabilities. In an inclusive situation, it may be useful for you to use the other amount column to clearly separate contract money for students with disabilities and other monies for students without disabilities, particularly if you're serving a high number of students without disabilities. Avoid percentages. Do not list a percentage only in the calculation box. Show us how you determined the percentage. In my example budget table, I have 3 ways of expressing the same expense. The first line is what we would not like to see. In the first line, the organization has proposed that 50% of the teaching artist fee costs $2,000. We don't know why the full teaching artist fee is $4,000, and we don't know why the contract fee is for 50% of the total. The second line of the table improves the entry by showing the calculation for the total teaching artist fee. One teaching artist will work for 5 hours for 2 residencies at a rate of $400 per hour. The budget also indicates that 50% of this cost was selected for the contract fee because 50% of the students being served are students with disabilities. The third line of the table equally improves upon the first line. In the third line of the table, the calculation shown for the cost of teaching artists is the same. But the reason for 50% of the expense being part of the contract fee is that the organization can bring $2,000 of other monies to deliver the VSA program, and it only requires an additional $2,000 of contract fee to include students with disabilities in the residencies. Unallowable costs. Please make sure that you read the list of unallowable costs on page 3, number 8 of the RFPs. In general, these are food and beverages, production costs for performances or exhibits, equipment and durable education supplies and art supplies, space rental of any kind, culminating activities, While we understand that culminating activities such as performances or exhibits are important to students, we choose for the emphasis of the contract to be on the learning process in the classroom. On page 6 of the RFPs is a more extensive but not exhaustive list of examples of unallowable costs. Avoid including these types of expenses in your contract fee justification. If they appear in your budget without any explanation that they're being paid for by non-contract fee monies, they will be removed from any contract offer you may receive. List supplies to avoid cost removal. A very common mistake applicants make is not listing their supplies and materials. Please list your supplies and materials so that we can confirm that these are indeed allowable costs. In the budget calculation box, along with the calculation, list the types of consumable supplies and materials you will use in your VSA program. In general, categories such as paint, clay, construction paper, etc. You do not need to indicate the quantity or the unit cost of each item. So list the general category of the type of consumable item. You don't have to indicate how much of the quantity of the item or the specific cost of an item. If the supplies and materials are not identified, the expenses will be considered as unspecified and will be removed from any contract offer you may receive. Avoid cost removal. Especially when a performing artist will lead a residency or workshop, it lists their role in the budget as teaching artist or facilitator. This will prevent confusion with the role of performer, which is an unallowable production cost. In your budget, also make sure you distinguish between staff costs for program delivery and administrative overhead. You probably have a staff person whose time falls into both categories. Maybe this is your executive director. Split the time up by role, not job title. Put the emphasis on program delivery. Administrative overhead is not to exceed 10% of the VSA contract amount column in the subtotal. So it's the contract subtotal. Per capita costs. When you're building your contract fee justification, keep in mind your per capita cost for students with disabilities. This is how we look at your budget, since we are first and foremost interested in serving students with disabilities. Even in inclusive settings, the VSA program is all about students with disabilities. And remember that we are looking for proposals that are cost-effective as well as strong programmatically. Getting bang for the buck. It's okay to maximize a contract by leveraging program partnerships and funding sources. It's a good thing if you're able to expand your network, expand the reach, and expand the objectives of the proposed services by securing partners or funders. This is a way that you can have a larger capacity than you originally thought, serve more students with disabilities, and it makes you more competitive as a VSA program. Lastly, I'd like to mention a little about branding. It's all about the logo. We want the services under contract that are meeting VSA program goals to be associated with the Access VSA brand. All VSA program site contractors are required to use a contract logo or acknowledgement line to brand the services being delivered as VSA programs. The acknowledgement line is Kennedy Center VSA Program Site 2024-2025. Logo and logo. We don't expect you to stop using your own logo or that of your funders, but to use the contract logo in addition to these logos when referring to VSA program activities. Those organizations who are selected for a contract will receive guidance on mandatory logo and acknowledgement line usage to identify their work under contract. Any questions? So now I'd love to have Sarah help me with answering questions that you may have brought into.
Yes, we do. This is Sarah speaking. We do have a few questions from the group.
And I'm going to stop sharing my slides for the moment in the hope that I will.
We're just seeing your desktop now.
Oh, that's not good.
Before you open anything.
Oh, there it is. Okay, stop share.
Wonderful. Okay, we have a few questions from the group. Let's see. The first is from Sarah. If the staff member who would be the project lead has a special ed certification from a different state, but her qualifications in our state are not up to date, would that satisfy the requirement? Or would we need to get her qualifications up to date before applying?
No, that is a great question, and you do not have to get somebody recertified. We just need to know that they've had that certification in the past. They've had that credential. They've had, been to school, had a degree, and just make sure that it's mentioned in the bio section.
Wonderful. The next one is, what is the age limit for student participants?
So we're looking at programs that are pre-K through grade 12. And if students are up to age 22, I think in Michigan, it may be up to age 23, that are still receiving special education services under IDEA, they can be older than that normal sort of 18 years of age that we are used to seeing in grade 12. So depending on your state and that students are receiving special education services, it could be up to age 22.
Great. Next is, which category do accessible scissors fall into?
So scissors fall into durable goods. So because they can be used over and over again, they can be disinfected, things like that. So yeah, we would not want to see scissors of any kind on your list.
Let's see. Next, a line in the RFP reads, contractor must have at least 3 years experience operating an arts education program. What credentials are needed to be considered an arts education program?
Well, we don't have credentials that are necessarily for operating an arts education program, but has your organization been offering arts education programs for at least 3 years? So it's not so much the individual in that case, but the organization. If you have a different number of years, like if you're a brand new organization, then maybe you want to call me and we can talk privately about that at some point, just to make sure that we're in the same on the same page.
Sounds good. The next one is, can a fiscally sponsored nonprofit be eligible to apply?
Yes, a fiscally sponsored nonprofit is eligible to apply, but we need to know who your fiscal sponsor is, because the contract, should you be offered a contract, that contract will need to be in the name of your fiscal sponsor. So for everything but being an actual nonprofit, needs to be, you need to be eligible for everything else that we're asking for, and then provide us with the information about your fiscal sponsor.
Perfect. Next up, everyone has really great questions, by the way.
Yeah.
Let's see. Will contracts be accepted from an organization that received an EASY award last year? And then there's a follow-up to this.
Okay. Yes. So if you have been a VSA program site before, doesn't matter which program, you can apply again if you're eligible for everything else that's listed in the particular RFP that you want to apply for. So and if you are a contractor currently working in the 23-24 fiscal year, we do have the requirement that you have to be in good standing, and this won't affect you being able to apply and receive an offer, but for when it comes time to actually be under contract, we'll need to make sure that your current contract has gone well, and there hasn't been something that would prevent us from wanting to contract with you again for 24-25.
Okay. Next question. How should we provide calculations in the budget for the conference that is required recommended? For example, flights, hotel, etc.
Yeah. So there's a line item specifically for the conference in the budget form. That's part of the proposal. And so you can write down, how many people are traveling, and this is the estimated cost for the airfare. I know that it makes it a little bit of a bigger job to try and estimate travel to Ohio when we don't know what city we'll be in. But I think if you sort of look around and see how the flights are looking at that from your state, from your city, you can make a reasonable estimate. And I've put in suggested estimated prices for hotel and for registration costs, so that you can plug those into your calculations, and just showing about how many, are you sending one person, or are you going to send more people? Are you going to add, if you're sending more people, are you adding some money into that from your own budget? Things like that. And you can use the two columns to distinguish between what might be contract fee money and what might be money that you're bringing to the table.
On the same theme as conferences, I'm going to lump some of these questions together for you, Stephanie. How much is registration normally? And a follow-up to that, or similarly, I think you can answer at the same time. In last year's contract, an award recipient could attend the LEAD conference or online VSA trainings. Will this be the same for this year's contracts?
Okay, so first of all, we don't have the option of people being able to attend virtually, except for if you're applying for the VSA EASY program. That one, there is an option to attend webinars. instead of a conference. And that has to do with the amount of the contract fee, the maximum amount of contract fee. The other, all the other programs, you're either required to attend edit, lead, or lead. And then that's specified within the RFP. So look for that in that page 3, number 8, I believe I had, it is. The costs, the suggested costs for registration are noted in the budget. It's form itself for, we're coming up with that right now, but what I've suggested there is $250 registration per person for ed at lead, and approximately $400 per person for lead. And we're still coming up with the specifics of registration. So there may be some flexibility. There will probably be some discount codes that are offered to members of the Access VSA that will affect that a little bit. So you'll have to stay tuned, but those are the costs that, the expense costs that I was proposing that you use for those line items.
Great. Let's see. If the credentialed professional that the applicant highlights in the proposal is someone the organization is newly working with, is that okay? For context, the poster says, we have a history of working with young people with disabilities, but this would be a new relationship with this credentialed professional.
No, that's fine. That's okay that you're bringing new people to work with. It's always good to have new teaching artists and new professionals. Yeah, there isn't, it's more the organization that we're concerned about having some experience with delivering the programs, and then having a credential, at least one credentialed person with a SPED credential of some sort on helping you with the program in some capacity, whether that's actually delivering the program or being an advisor.
Great. Next we are hoping to invite a teaching artist to facilitate programming, but are not 100% certain that this artist will be able to participate. If needed, would we be able to hire a different artist than the one named in the original application?
Great question. We know things change, and that can be your teaching artist availability, or even the schools or other community groups that you're hoping to serve might change over time. And even this might happen from the time that you write the proposal to when we're ready to offer contracts. And even if you are offered a contract during the course of your contract period, things can change. So that said, you can update your proposal at any point in time. We like to know what's happening. The teaching artist that you write in now, if you're offered a contract offer, you'll have an opportunity to update your proposal, and it might be exchanging some of those people that are helping. You can also always send me an email that says, hey, this is the new teaching artist. This other person ended up not being available at any point.
Next, our question is, we are a performing arts center with a long history of offering sensory inclusive performances. We also offer an usher training program for people with disabilities. We are interested in offering classes for young people with disabilities, but do not currently. Are we ineligible to apply because we are lacking the 3-year history?
I think this is something that you and I maybe should talk about. Um, I always recommend people putting a proposal in because we don't want to miss some really excellent programming. And maybe you and I can talk about it a little bit. I think a lot of it depends on what you've been doing as a performing arts center in the way of working with or having young people in your space, and what maybe you have been offering, in the way of touch tours or social stories or something else that might be applicable to what you're hoping to develop even more. So why don't you give me a call and we can talk about your specific situation.
I've passed along your contact information to that questioner.
Great. I have some wrap up slides too that will put it back up on the
Great.
board.
We've also put it in the chat if anyone needs it. Let's see. Our music director's credential is a graduate certificate in music education and autism from Berklee School of Music. Would that be acceptable? As a credential?
Yeah. Yes. I would say that would be acceptable, especially if if your target population of students that you're serving are on the spectrum.
Okay. I see a minute of 5 hours. Oh, I'm sorry. I see a minimum of 5 hours of instruction for visual arts ed. Is this total or per week or month?
This is total. So overall, when you see total hours of instruction listed in the RFPs, it is the minimum requirement for one student. So if you're following one student, they need to receive at least 5 hours of instruction during the whole program, that whole residency, for instance. So, and that 5 hours can be over whatever length of time you have set for that residency, whether that's in 1 week or it's in 3 months that you're doing the residency, however long that you're telling us that residency is. You're welcome to do more than that, spend more than 5 hours. I know that I frequently see somewhere between 8 and 10 hours being the average for residencies. But we don't want to see below 5 hours if it's been specified. The EZ program is the only RFP that there is no specificity for the number of hours of instruction, and the Max and PAX, which is the museum access and the performing arts access. Those do not have specific hours of instruction that need to be met.
All right, next question. Is it okay if our proposal works across multiple schools and disabilities?
Yes, that's great. So you have the flexibility to propose to us how you want to, which students with disabilities you want to address. So, or how, what you're, because a lot of it depends on your own capacity. So you can serve students with disabilities in one school or multiple schools, multiple school districts, depending on how much coverage your organization has. It could be students with one type of disability, or it could be students with multiple different disabilities. It's up to you and where your expertise is and what capacity you have as an organization. One of the things that you need to look at when you're choosing your how broad you're going to serve is how many students with disabilities the RFP states you must serve. So for some of them, it's 75 students with disabilities, and some it's 100 students with disabilities. So you need to be able to do that. And we're talking about unique students. So not serving the same class over and over again to reach 75 students with disabilities, but 75 unique students with disabilities.
Let's see. Do the programs have to be at a school site, or can we use our organizational site? We have an inclusive arts workshop.
You do not have to do the programming at a school, the hands-on arts programming. So you can do it in a community setting, you can do it in your own space. So for the museum access and the performing arts access, there is a component that has to be at the venue, because the purpose of the program is about venues providing accessibility to students with disabilities. So with those, you have to have the museum visit or the show at the venue, but the hands-on educational component can be at a school, it could be at your site, it could be at another community setting. For those that are doing residency work, that can all be at a non-school location.
Wonderful. Let's see. As a presenting venue, can we use the contract fee to pay a touring company?
So this is one of the unallowable costs because it has to do with presenting. And so no, you cannot use the contract fee to pay for a touring company to come to your venue to present a show that students will then come to view. So the touring part, paying directors, paying actors, paying for transporting a show to your venue cannot use the contract fee. You'll need to find other monies for that. Ideally, when we're looking at the performing arts access program, we're looking for you to be, or we're making an assumption that you're going to be adding kids to come to part of your already organized season, so that you're just opening up the show for kids, to making sure that they'll come to your shows that are already scheduled.
All right, we have 2 more questions that have just come in. You mentioned not being, you mentioned not using space in the narrative to describe need, but is there any benefit for the applicant to provide context and background around the urgent need of the community and the school for these services? Or does VSA assume there's an urgent need across the country and this isn't necessary to include in the proposal?
Yeah, it's not really necessary to include in the proposal. If you're feeling very strong about it and you have the space, you're welcome to put it in there. But we know that there's a need for the programs. That's why we're offering them. And we're looking for the expertise. So the emphasis is more on, why are you a good choice for us to hire to do the programming in your community? So I would first tackle those types of narrative, because the narrative space is limited, making sure that you first and foremost tell us about you and how you're serving the students with disabilities and what you're going to do before launching into how desperately the particular program is needed in your community.
Let's see. If we have our own space, do we show the rent as in-kind support, or can we itemize the workshop or exhibit space?
You can list it as in kind if you want to. It's not something, yeah, I mean, it's an overhead cost, and so you're welcome to put it in the other amount column, because this isn't something that we want the contract fee going towards. But yeah, if you want to be showing more of a full contribution from your organization and what you bring to the table, you're welcome to do so. It's not required, but you're welcome to do it.
So Stephanie, is this a good program for folks working in a library?
Yeah, this can be. Because so many libraries are offering arts programming and or working in collaboration with other arts organizations to bring arts programming to their location, to the library. So yeah, I would look at the RFP carefully and look through
Specific.
it. Sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Would this specifically be for the EASY program, or is there one you would recommend?
I think it depends on what you, sorry, I'm gonna sneeze. It depends on what your capacity is. For the EZ programs, if you have a small amount of students that are coming into the library, then that might be, the EZ might be a more appropriate RFP to address, program to address. I think it really just depends on what your eligibility is in the other categories, and what the program looks like. I'm happy to discuss that more with you if you want to give me a call or write to me at some point to know what the actual situation is and what you're thinking about. And then I could direct you a little bit more specifically.
Wonderful. They said they're going to reach out to you.
Perfect.
And Stephanie, I did put in the chat, but please confirm the deadline to apply is March 13th.
That is correct. And
Okay.
thank you for doing that. So you have till almost to just before midnight on that to get your proposals in.
And I believe that's all of our questions for tonight.
Great. I am going to just share my screen again briefly. So I'm going to follow up with everybody that's registered with an email with the link to the recording of today's presentation and the transcript. And I want to thank everybody for participating. You had really great questions today, and so many of them. So thank you for being willing to ask them in a public setting. If you have specific questions about what you're writing, or you have a question in the, as you're completing your proposal, please feel free to give me a call at 202-416-8847 or email me at sslitback@kennedy-center.org. And I look forward to receiving your proposals by March 13.